Biases have been around since the dawn of man. um, we are products of our environment in a sense, so we're always going to have biases, and it's up to us really to know how to tamp those down and ensure that we're not allowing those to feed into our lives in negative ways. And in expert testimony, it's essential to not be biased when providing an opinion or other expert testimony, to ensure that you're not swaying the jury in any way, or doing things unethically or morally wrong or illegal. So the types of biases that come into play for experts specifically, and people in industry, in any professional sense, are cognitive biases. And these are the tendency to process information through our experiences. So as I mentioned, we're a product of our environment, and based on what we have learned through our lives, we form biases and essentially kind of stereotypes about people and places and things, and what we know of the world. And we can have those come into play in different ways. One of which is confirmation bias, and that is seeking only information which matches our current beliefs. Another is outcome bias, and that is judging a decision by the outcome intended instead of the quality of the decision. So these two can form incorrect and invalid results. And when it comes to the context of forensic science expert testimony, these are called adversarial biases. Adversarial bias can play a significant role in a significant negative role in the way that experts share their opinions in court and testify. And that could be that, they're presented by experts hired to persuade a claim. So they're kind of, they know what their hiring side is intending, and so they kind of go towards that result rather than basing it solely on the information they receive to actually complete their opinion and their methods and techniques. They kind of sway it in one direction or another. And the expert will consciously comply their testimony with the trend of whichever side has hired them. So again, they go towards whatever outcome or belief is of the either prosecution, defense, whichever side has hired them. Lay witnesses may also have cognitive biases, though it's not as serious as when an expert has this type of bias, because they're supposed to be more reliable. Lay witnesses are, the general public. They're fact witnesses. They saw something, they heard something, whatever it is, and they are just testifying to what they were able to gather from their perception of that moment. Sometimes they're believable, sometimes they're not. There are times where lay witnesses are not actually, not a lot of weight is put on their testimony, but a lot of weight is placed on the testimony of experts, because they are experts. They are supposed to be providing the most accurate and reliable and valid results possible from their methods and techniques of finding these opinions. So when they are leaning one way or another based on biases, it weighs more heavily on the results of the trial. And expert witnesses are hired to provide valid and reliable opinion based on facts of the case. So again, just what I said. So how does this type of bias occur? So as we saw in the article that we were to read for this module, there are quite a few ways that this can occur, one of which is the absence of competition. So when it comes to specific like forensic labs, there may be only one in the area, only one that's provided the information, only one that can be giving any sort of expertise or study or examining the evidence. So they can kind of just, if they want, make up whatever results they want, and nobody's going to be the wiser because there's nobody checking them. There's no checks and balances, essentially, which kind of brings me over to weak quality control. So I will discuss that next, actually. So weak quality control. Nobody is checking. Nobody is ensuring that these results are valid. You know, the scientific method is supposed to be that you are to continuously do this research. This experiment is supposed to happen multiple times to ensure that these results are valid. And sometimes that doesn't happen when it comes to this type of expert testimony, especially if there is only one place doing it. If they are the only one that's getting all of the evidence in from everywhere in that county, in that town, whatever it is, they might be backlogged and they're just trying to get things out, and they just don't have the time to check and recheck and have that quality control be as appropriate as necessary. Also, there's budgeting from attached police departments. So here in my town, actually in my county, the forensic lab is in the morgue. So we have police there, though. So there's a lot of overlap, and if budgeting is coming from one specific place, especially if it's a police department, those people in that lab or whatever place it is are going to want to people please, essentially. So they're going to want to get the results that they think the overhead, the oversight committee, is going to want to have, so that they can continue getting paid and they can continue doing their work. And that can obviously interfere with reliability. And then also results that are expected to be reached, unconscious bias in interpretations or conscious fraud. So again, if they're thinking that results are supposed to be one way, they may just sway it that way so that they come up with the same results or similar results to what they believe is supposed to happen. And so that brings me to regulations and standards. So how do we regulate this? How do we ensure that this doesn't occur? So the development of the Frye test, that made judges the gatekeepers to deny or admit expert evidence to the jury. Then there was the implementation of Daubert, which expanded on the gatekeeping role for forensic science evidence, assuring that there was scientific reliability specifically. The Federal Rules of Evidence, Rule 403, the court may exclude relevant evidence for unfair prejudice. And unfair prejudice was, within its context, it means an undue tendency to suggest a decision on an improper basis, commonly, though not necessarily, an emotional one. We also have the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, 26A2, report preparation to contain statement of opinions, data forming the opinions themselves, the exhibits, qualifications in any publications of witnesses, compensation for those witnesses, and other cases that those witnesses have testified in the last 4 years. And then jury instruction. So the judge will instruct a jury to possibly consider motives that witnesses have for testifying, take into consideration any bias that they may have displayed, or something to the effect of, did the witness have a personal interest in the outcome? So of course bias is never going to be 100% eliminated, but it can be diminished significantly. And if an expert is really going based on their sole purpose and the information that is provided to them right then and there without having outside influences, it will better prepare them for valid and accurate results. And that is why these regulations and standards have been implemented. Thank you.